All right, y'all. So Catherine Orr is here with us today, and she has been not only crushing in real estate, but she's also been crushing it when it comes to like budgeting and financing. And I think it's kind of prudent to kind of share a little bit, especially with ups and downs in markets. How do you make sure that your like finances and consistent and you have a cool path? So I'd like for you to share a little bit about what you're doing and how you do it, and what you'd like to know, what you wish you knew when you're getting the business if it was something different.
For sure. Well, one thing I'll say is actually when I was considering being an agent and I met with the art team, they did a great job prepping me on realistic expectations. And I'm so grateful for that. And I took their advice and ran with it. So before I even became an agent, I found out the cost of real estate school, taking your tests, your realtor dues, all that kind of stuff, and saved up for that amount. I also was told, hey, in your first 6 months of real estate, you might close one deal, right? And that doesn't mean you're not doing well in real estate. It's just there's a little bit of time that it takes to get going. So they recommended having about 6 months worth of income that you need saved up. So if you're a single person and I live off of X amount a month, which we'll talk about budgeting in a second, but I live off of X amount a month, I would recommend having at least 3 months, but 3 to 6 months of savings so that you can make it during that time. If you have a spouse, look at your budget together, see what they bring in. What do you need to contribute? What's your part? And save up that amount of money, right? So I did that. And I'm so grateful for it because then in those first 6 months of real estate, I got to breathe and I got to learn and I got to enjoy it. I closed one house in the first 4 months and then closed. It was also COVID, but closed my next closings didn't happen for 3 months later. And I'm so grateful that I budgeted out and planned for that. So that's a little bit about the front end. But then with that, even as you keep going, as we all know, real estate is a full-time commission job.
Yeah, well, they should know if they don't, right?
If you don't, then surprise, there's no promised income. And that can be a blessing and a curse. If you're prepared for it, it's a huge blessing because you can really do well in real estate. But if you're not prepared for that, then it's really humiliating and frustrating, right? So all that to say, I'm really grateful that I had that time to enjoy it. But let's talk about budgeting in general, right? So some people just fly by the seat of their pants, and I respect those people. Brad might be one of them.
Definitely.
But I am a huge fan of budgeting, and it's 2023. We have so many budgeting apps at our fingertips. We don't have to use Excel anymore, right? So I know people like Mint. I don't recommend Mint for agents. It's not good for commission jobs. Some people like Every Dollar, which I think is Dave Ramsey. We personally like a budgeting app called YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. It's really creative and allows you a lot of ways of placing money and making goals and setting money ahead for the future so you don't touch it now. There's just like a lot of different ways to work with that. But once you get that going and you really understand it, it helps you see the money that you actually have to spend, right? Because your bank account can say one thing, but when you assign all of those dollars jobs and see what it is intended to do, pay bills, pay MLS dues, pay realtor fees, pay for closing gifts or listing fees for getting a listing ready, what have you, you'll see that often you have a lot less money than you think you do.
Yeah, you see your net,
right?
Like
you see your true net. And also, I believe in budgeting, especially as an agent, when you do not have a fixed salary lifestyle. You need to have a buffer because you might have a great month and then you might have a few slow months. You might have a few great months and then a few slow months, whatever. And so everyone is different, but we prefer to have like a 3 to 6 month buffer. So that if hard times come, we don't have to lose sleep about paying our bills or anything like that. So that is kind of how I think through budgeting, and it allows me to be freed up to really enjoy my job and not stress out.
And that's what I've noticed a lot. I mean, obviously being a broker in charge for years now and having a team for 18 years, I feel like when people don't have that buffer, or if two things, they jump in too early and they don't have the savings, or they don't have that buffer. Like we all know, like we have a closing on Friday, it could fall apart Friday morning because somebody didn't do something correctly. And if we needed that paycheck, one, home life stress, people's workload stress, and then I feel like people can make some decisions that may not be in the best interest of the client because they know they need to get this to make their paychecks. And they may utilize a advanced commission platform to get money, which is so bad in terms of fees. So like I think it makes you a better agent because you can focus, like you said earlier, on what you need to focus on. That's the client and the deal, and not worry about like I have to have this dollar, which I get it, but like it's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of things to say in light of that. Two things. One piece of advice that I got when I was coming on at Art, and I was a little, just overwhelmed by the process going from my husband and I having 2 salary jobs to him having a salary job and me doing this.
Right.
And I was 26 years old when I started. We were not rolling in the dough.
Right.
I had a little bit of moment of panic. And so I'm not saying that there's not a level of calculated risk going into real estate because there is no promised income. But when you have those buffers, it allows you to take that risk and you're not just going to fall flat on your face. Right. But anyways, the piece of advice that was given to me is you want to sell real estate from a place of, I'm excited to sell real estate. Not from a place of, I gotta sell real estate. That will affect the way that not only you live your life and enjoy your job, but the way you treat your clients and talk to your clients.
And the way you're perceived by those people.
Absolutely.
Too, right?
People can read through your money fear and your desperation. They can. And you do not want to be in a position where you could ever think to yourself, did I give someone maybe not the best advice because I need that closing so bad.
Right.
I mean, that's heartbreaking to even say out loud because I hope no one would ever do that to me. You want to be in a place where as an agent, I've said to clients, y'all, don't buy this house. This is not a good idea because I care about them and I see how much money it's going to take from them, right? So I love that advice. Now, did that mean that the only people that should go into real estate are people that already have a trust fund? No, we were not those people, but we did have some protection and protections and barriers in place. So again, I think buffer is key. Save up before you start and keep it up. And don't spend, when you have a good closing, make sure to sign that money because it goes away quicker than you think it is and keep that buffer up so you can stay being a great agent.
Curveball, but if you were single when you got into real estate, which I mean, obviously you weren't, would you have done anything differently? Or, I mean, I don't know. It's like, again, a random question, but I'm just...
Yeah. I think it probably would have taken me longer to enter into the business. Thankfully, we had already kind of saved up an emergency savings, taken tax returns and kind of set it aside and things like that. I think it probably just would have taken me a little bit longer to set aside money monthly. I would have had to live lean, set aside money monthly so that I had that money set aside. But I do not believe in jumping into real estate, flying by the seat of your pants. Almost always, I don't see it work out well.
Yeah, no, I've literally not seen it work out well. I mean, the other thing too, you're allowed to say no. When you don't have to have that deal, like you can say no. And then when you don't have to have that deal and somebody asks you to discount your rate, instead of like, I have to have something, I'll do it, you can also hold your ground because you know you can be a little bit more of a professional when it comes at it. So yeah, the buffer's great, and to date myself a little bit. So obviously there were apps when I got in the business, but like it was 2006. Like they weren't, I was like a trio Palm Pilot, right? So I actually opened 7 bank accounts off of like advice of this real estate coach. And I did the same thing kind of what the app is doing. Like I had money for my house, my rent, money for my truck, money for this. So some months I'd go like, I got 6 months worth of stuff. Some months I'd have 12, some months I'd have 3. So I knew I could pay my bills for so long before something hit the fan. But the app, I do want to look at that app because I'm a QuickBooks guy for all the companies. But that's a whole different budgeting strategy. That's,
for sure.
That's nuts.
A little bit of a learning curve, and you kind of have to nerd out in the beginning. But once you learn it, we've had it since we got married in 2017. So we've loved it. Back to commission structures and things like that. One thought I have is, there are a bunch of different commission structures all throughout there. And honestly, I don't know a ton about all of them because I've been at Art only and I love it. But I do know that there are certain brokerages that offer more and certain brokerages that offer less. So I can only speak to my experience at Art. But my experience at Art is there are so many things built in to my commission split, if you will, coordinators, photographers, videographers, me getting to do this. There's more. You can start listing it if you want. But those are just some things up. The quarterly events that we do for clients. I mean, just so many different things that I am not honestly having to budget that much for my own real estate expenses. Like my real estate expenses are really things that I choose to do. I choose to send out birthday things every single month. I choose to do a closing gift. Those are 2 examples off the top of my head. When you go to another brokerage, It's like, hey, your split's X.
Right.
And now you're going to pay for printing. Oh, that's another thing that I love that we have. You're going to pay for printing. You're going to pay for your photographer,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So you're like, oh, I'm getting this commission. And then this.
Right.
This. That is more to manage to me.
Correct.
So first of all, I think that's hard from a finances perspective, but also from like a time perspective.
Sure. Right.
I love that every day I just wake up and I just get to focus on my client.
Right.
That's all I have to worry about. And I think I get to make more money because I get to focus on my client rather than stressing out about coordinating all these little things all the time.
Correct.
Agents might not like that, and
Sure.
they might think they can go get money elsewhere,
Correct.
and maybe they can.
Sure.
But I often find when you are in the weeds focusing on that stuff, you're losing time to go out and make contacts and
100%.
build your business.
Yeah, I mean, like I like to, and thank you for saying that, but I like to say, like, there's 100 pennies in the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's true, but you also will be spending your money and time to spend those pennies. So therefore, you're hiring a photographer, you got to go out there, you got to drive out there, you got to edit it, you got to do all this, or wait for them to edit it. And then if it doesn't sell, you got to pay it still.
Yep.
So like that, you're spending the same amount of money.
Right.
And that's the one thing I thought was funny too, is when I got into business, the company I worked for, they charge for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like my first 3 months, I think I got a bill each month for like $500 because like, hey, you used the open house sign, you used printing, you did this. And it's like, I'm in the hole before I even get started, which a lot of people don't realize. And also training, you know, how do you budget for training? Some companies offer a lot of training, but you got to pay for it. So, or desk fees and all that stuff. So it gets in there, right? Everybody's got hands in pockets somehow, some way. It's just tough.
Also, as you do better, you will have more closings
Correct.
at the same time. And I can just tell you from experience that spring and summer, like, I'm already overwhelmed. It's already a lot. And that's a blessing.
Right.
But to some degree, it's like, is this worth it? You know? And I have thought to myself repeatedly, if I was having to manage more than what I already manage, I could not do it.
Right.
It would be too much. And I also can like go on vacation and know that things are going to run smoothly without me physically present.
Sure.
On a listing day, we have everything so automated in-house that I can go out of town on a Friday, no big deal.
Right.
Not a concern.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I think overall, I think I do save money and time and sanity.
So to kind of wrap that up with a little bit of a bow is when you're looking at real estate, or if you're in a real estate company now, you're already an agent, and you're looking at your budgeting, sometimes looking at the structure and what people are offering can actually help your budgeting.
Absolutely.
And especially like times like now, things are a little slower right now, and you know it's hard to write a $400 check for photography when you might want to do it on your phone because you can save some money. But again, are we doing the right things for our clients? So so last question. So when things are slow, or if it's a transition, kind of a shifting market, do you do anything differently when it comes to budgeting? Do you try and get a bigger buffer for savings with you and your husband? Do you cut back on anything? Do you double down on anything when it comes to finances? Or you just kind of...
To be honest, I think because we started our buffer the way that we did, it really set us up well to put money towards paying off student debt and different things like that. And so we kind of, it starts to snowball.
Right.
And so we are now in a place where, would I like to have more saved up? Always. I mean, that's always the case. Would I like to have more money to throw it towards this or that? Always. But my husband actually left his job last year for the fall and started a new job this January. And it was the right choice for our family. And we were able to do that because we had budgeted and because we were smart about it. We did not change our cost of living. Maybe, maybe some people would say you should, but I just knew that we had the ability to do that. I knew he was going to get a job eventually, and I knew that my business was working for me. And so, to be honest, when things are slow and when things are busy, we live very similarly, and I love that.
So you actually save and buffer, so you don't have to change your lifestyle, right?
To me, that is an indicator that you are financially stable, is when you don't have to adjust your life when the market is maybe less friendly.
That's awesome. Well, you can always find Catherine on the Instagrams. You can DM her if you have personal questions. She loves to share. I'm offering up your advice. But if you got questions about this, let us know or reach out to her directly. And hopefully you've got that buffer in your budgeting so you can be the best agent you are. So thanks, Catherine. I appreciate it.
Of course.